What is up, Watch fam? Happy Monday, and welcome to this week's episode of AskTNH Live. I am Christian from Theo and Harris. I am live on Instagram at Theo and Harris, which you should definitely follow. Let's do it. All right, quick wristwatch check. I have a ton of watches here. We were recording a video today, a video actually about my personal collection. I dove into the watches themselves, why I own them, why I think they're interesting, and why I think they're worth owning. But I talked about the history, kind of, for me, what these watches meant specifically in college, right? College, getting into watches in college or right around college is what changed so much of my life, right? So I have, in my opinion, a particularly kind of cool and impactful story about this hobby. I'm stoked about it. The video is going to be amazing. We could have just did like a regular kind of collection review, but we decided to way overproduce it. It'll be funny. On my wrist, I'm wearing my personal Datejust, a reference 1601 from 1977. Speaking of meaningful watches, for me, doesn't really get much more meaningful. In fact, Anna plays some video from the video dedicated to that watch. Boom. Pele's goodbye, the summer of Sam, Elvis no longer in the building, all with the warm smell of colitas up in the air. It was 1977, my parents couldn't drive yet, and this Rolex was born. All right, so let's talk about auctions. This past week, I went to the Phillips Auction on Wednesday night, I believe. Tuesday, they had a preview as well as a discussion between RL Box, Waco, and an executive from Mr. Porter. Phillips is probably one of the more interesting auction houses, right? It's the topical one. They've had groundbreaking sales. Most notably, Paul Newman's Daytona, which nailed like 18 million bucks. It's kind of funny, Phillips as an auctioneer is not new, right? But Phillips watches is only 4 years old maybe, and they've just kind of leveled or had such a disproportionate impact, specifically beside heritage watch auction companies, Sotheby's, Christie's, so many companies that I'm sure that they're making a ton of money, yada, 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 but no one in the watch industry talked about watch auctions as much as we do now with Phillips. A couple of things. First, they decided to begin this new style of pairing watches and style as kind of the frame for the conversation. Why would they do that? Two reasons. One, at least I believe, things are more attractive, right, when you can put them into a lifestyle. A Rolex Datejust is very cool. A Rolex Datejust on a very cool looking dude is cooler, right? It gives a potential buyer an easier opportunity to see how cool this will look on him when he inevitably buys it, right? Next, Phillips is trying to expand their base beyond watch people. It's something that every retail company tries to do. You can't, if you're going to own a larger company, more mass market company, as opposed to just a geeky company, you have to start cross-contaminating with other realms and other kind of businesses. And that's why their collaboration with Waco and Mr. Porter is so important. Now, that said, I don't know if the collections that were brought were perfectly executed. I thought that the watches were extremely expensive, extremely important, expensive watches. And I thought that the style was, although really on point, really nice, I don't think that they were equal, right? Talking about the best watches in the world and then good clothing. It wasn't great clothing, right? That's it's odd to me. It's like showing off the world's best Patek Philippe's and serving, Protocolo, an $8, Spanish red wine. Makes no sense. You would assume that they would serve something that, that was more kind of on brand. So it was fun. You heard a lot of the same shit you always hear at these round tables. But RL and Waco are always interesting, even if they're saying the same thing over and over again. They're just interesting dudes. They're very achieved and all that shit. So it was cool. It was a lot of fun. There were some lots that went for a lot of money, some lots that went for a very small amount of money. There were two specific platinum Patek Philippe's that went really low. One was a 5070, one was a 5140. I don't understand why at an auction someone would bid beyond the market value on a watch. right? If you can go on Chrono24 and get a great understanding from 7 or 8 different listings of what you can acquire a certain piece at, why you would bid on a watch over its objective kind of like sale price elsewhere. It's not a rare thing, right? A 5140 isn't particularly rare, right? 5070s are a little bit rarer, particularly in that blue and platinum mix, but still, they're available. I think that there are 5 or 6 on Chrono24. So why someone would pay a premium makes no sense. In this particular instance, there was no premium. I believe both of those watches actually sold under where they are in Chrono24 quite considerably. You can assume that on big watches like that, the Chrono24 listing price is not totally accurate. You can assume that there is wiggle room, but not 40 grand in wiggle room across all board. It made no sense. Okay, let's segue into some other questions. Watches by Nick says, sort of like that Black Bay you had listed that was over market. Yeah, it was an accident. I don't sell modern watches really. I specifically don't sell modern Tudor watches. We listed a watch actually above its retail price. So if you want to villainize T&H and think that we were trying to, whatever, go ahead. But obviously it was a declaration of ignorance on that market thing. I think I went on Chrono. I don't even know how I got to that price. I have no idea. I mean, it wasn't an accident, like I typed it. I didn't mean to type 2800 and type 3800. It was just a stupid. It was a stupid moment. That's really it. Oyster Perpetuals are worth it. They are a little bit less money. They are at 34 millimeters. I think great value. I really do. I mean, if you can pull off a 34 millimeter watch, why wear the 36 and spend the extra $1,000? It makes no sense. 34 millimeter Rolexes specifically represent a lot of value when the dials are really interesting, right? So a standard Datejust versus an exceptional Datejust, as far as like a dial is concerned, could be $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. Gilt DJs right now are selling in like the $7s, right? As opposed to like a $3,200 baseline for a DJ. It's a $4,000 premium. Big money. Whereas with a 34 millimeter watch, you see a considerably smaller premium. The gilt 34 millimeter date would maybe demand a $1,500 premium, maybe an $1,800 premium. Nothing compared to what the DJ does. I also think that they're classic. I just do. Anthony Bourdain wore one quite frequently. I wear them quite often. There's nothing inherently feminine about a 34 millimeter watch. People feel that way, but there's nothing inherently feminine about it. The original Explorers, not the Explorer 1, but the originals, they were 34s. I mean, some of the Ernest Hemingway, I think, wore a bubble back. I'm talking about 31 millimeter watches. Like I said, I always go to Muhammad Ali, the biggest, baddest motherfucker out there, wore a little Cartier tank. And if he can do it, so can anyone else. And he had a arm like a tree trunk, so it doesn't make any sense. Explorer 1 or 2, good question. Explorer 2, I think I like the Polar Explorer 2 almost better than any other modern Rolex that's competing. If the difference is around 1K, if we stipulate that is the truth, then yeah, go for it. It's a better watch, sure, and that means something to you. If it's anything more than that, don't expect to get the money back on the back end. I've heard horror stories about the Panerai pre-owned market. Once you are pre-owned, you're okay usually. But if you're paying like a retail price, especially if you're paying a big premium because of little nuances like a JLC movement or something, I have a very hard time believing you're going to get someone else to find that kind of watch. Find someone else that's going to pay that premium. So be careful. Favorite watch? It's a layup. Cartier is probably my favorite brand. Period. The Datejust is my favorite watch. Cartier is my favorite brand. Right? They're endlessly imaginative with their iterations or with their different variations of the same kind of image. Right? Precious case, white dial, white Roman dial. I think it's incredible brand. That's it. What other brands? A lot of brands. But those are my two biggies. Omega too. Vintage Omega Seamasters, guys. Everyone's sleeping on Omega Seamasters. They're incredible watches. They are so. I mean, they're in-house. Before Swatch Group bought them, their cases are I would say RRRR, like a fucking walrus. Their cases are beautiful. They're multifaceted, right? They have these gorgeous thick lugs in so many instances. Sometimes they're in pink gold, sometimes yellow, sometimes steel. Their dial configurations are almost endless. right? They have honeycomb, waffle. They have these dagger indices. They have, Breguet numerals. There's so much variation. There's so much value in Vintage Omega. Pick one up. We're always listing those in the Theo and Harris Watch Shop. Always. Because we love them so much. I can't say that one of those things sells me a watch, because it doesn't. Right? I need a baseline. I definitely buy looks more than movement. But, brand, overall quality of construction, those things matter. There's no doubt. I wouldn't, for example, a really famous watch that's famous for its movement specifically is the Longines Ultra Chron, right? It's kind of commonly held in the vintage world that dollar for dollar, that is one of the best built watches you can possibly buy. Doesn't do it for me, or it doesn't do it for me any more than an ordinary Longines. Specifically, if that ordinary Longines has a particularly interesting dial or a beautiful case. I like movements, I really do. I am blown away by FP Journe. I love their architecture. I'm blown away by Lange in many instances, but I don't just buy watches because of those things. It's just not my thing. It's just not my thing. So looks. At the end of the day, long story short, looks. But there needs to be a strong foundation. A lot of other things going for the watch. Good. Pick the best question. Who was it?
I like that last question.
That last question. All right. Cool. Most thought-provoking. Done. Whoever it was. Who asked the question about the Harkin Charlie? Shoot us an email at info@theoandharris.com, and we are going to send you a shirt. Boom! Send us your size. Otherwise, you're going to get the wrong size. That's fine. All right? That's like, now I wasted a shirt. Yeah, that's not fun.